I received divorce papers in an email while I was still in the desert. 13 years of marriage had ended in a PDF attachment to my name. Michael, 42, a sergeant in the 82nd Airborne Division. I had been in Kandahar for 4 months when Emma decided she couldn't wait any longer. The subject line was, "Let's grow up about this." The message itself was 3 sentences long. She had filed the papers, she had drained our joint account, she had moved her new boyfriend, David, into our house in Spokane. I read the email twice, closed my laptop, showered in the shared bathroom, dressed for work, and said nothing to anyone. When I returned to my bunk that night, I responded with one word: understood. No arguing, pleading, or threatening. Wilson, my bunkmate, noticed something was wrong. Without looking up from his book, my good friend asked, "What's going on?" I said it was just some stuff at home. He nodded, and that was it. Soldiers know when to leave things alone. Truth be told, I wasn't surprised. 6 months into the deployment, things had changed. Little things. Emma stopped asking about my day, started working late at her dental office, didn't answer her phone, started going to the gym 3 times a week but never seemed to break a sweat, new clothes, new friends. I never saw a new password on her phone. I didn't confront her, check her messages, or stalk her. That's not who I am, but I'm not blind either, so I made some quiet moves of my own. Nothing dramatic, just precautionary. I kept important documents in a storage unit across town: birth certificates, marriage licenses, house deeds with only my name on them, thanks to a VA loan, military benefits paperwork. I moved my grandfather's watch and my mother's old silverware to the same unit. Important stuff. I also opened a separate account at another bank and started funneling a portion of my paycheck into it. Not enough for her to notice, but so I wouldn't have to start from scratch if things went south. The night before I deployed, she hugged me at the airport and said, "Be safe." Okay. Her eyes were dry, as if she were saying goodbye to a coworker, not a husband who was going off to war. I should have known, but part of me still hoped I was wrong. I didn't. What she didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment. And what she didn't understand was that I never started fights, but I would end them. We met at a friend's barbecue in 2010. I was home between tours and staying with my friend Jason in Spokane. Emma was finishing nursing school but ended up working as an administrator at a dental office instead of nursing, which was less stressful than she said. We were married 8 months later. Emma often said she was proud of my service, even though she never understood it. Her dad was a banker, her brother was a pharmacist, no military in her family. She asked when I would get a real job, not realizing that after 15 years, the military was my career, not just a job to kill time. We bought the house in 2014, nothing fancy, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, small yard, quiet neighborhood. My name was the only one on the mortgage because the VA loan was in my name, but added hers to the paperwork, because that's what married people share everything. My dad died a year after we got married from a heart attack while shoveling snow. My mom died 3 years later from lung cancer, even though she never smoked. They left me some money, not a fortune, but enough for Emma and I to pay off college, loans, and still have a cushion. I deployed 4 times during our marriage, twice in Iraq, twice in Afghanistan. Each time I came home, Emma seemed a little more distant, a little more restless, as if she were playing a role she had outgrown. "I didn't sign up to be a military wife," she told me once after I mentioned the possibility of a 4-year extension. "I'm tired of being alone all the time." I understood, but the military was the only place I'd ever felt like I truly belonged. I was good at my job. People depended on me. In 2019, things started to change. Little things at first. Emma got upset when I called in the middle of the night, started talking about how her friend Melissa was divorced and living her best life now, started making comments about how we really had nothing in common anymore. I suggested counseling. She said we were fine, just going through a phase. Then came the late nights at work, the weekends out with friends, the new clothes I never saw, the gym membership she rarely used. I should have confronted her, but that's not how I handled things. My dad never taught me to think before I spoke, to be sure before I acted, so I watched and prepared in silence. My instincts told me something was coming, And in this life, you learn to trust your instincts. 2 weeks after receiving the divorce email, I was sitting in the dining room when my phone rang. A notification from our banking app, another withdrawal of $88,500, almost all of the money left. I put down my spoon and opened the app. The joint account balance was down to $22.37. Our savings of $47,000 that had been accumulated over the years were gone, transferred to another account. Murphy, one of my unit mates, glanced at the bad news. I locked my phone? No, just some money in the account. That night, I called our bank from the call center. It turned out that Emma had been transferring money for weeks, small amounts at first, then larger amounts, the big transfers starting the day after I was deployed. I hung up the phone and stood in the hallway for a long time, watching men laugh, calling their children their wives, their parents, normal life going on around me while my life burned. That's when Wilson found me. Hearing Alvarez say he looked like he'd seen a ghost at dinner, he said, "What's going on?" I don't usually share personal things, but Wilson pulled me out of a bad situation in Kandahar when I trusted him. My wife had drained our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our house. I said, "Send the divorce papers," while I was on patrol last week. Wilson didn't say the usual nonsense. "I'm sorry," nor "That was rude," or "You'll find someone better." He just asked, "What's your plan?" I wasn't sure, I said. He nodded. "Let me know if you need anything." I couldn't sleep that night, so I grabbed my laptop and logged into the home security system. Something Emma might have forgotten. I remotely accessed the cameras, saw a strange truck in our driveway, a man I had never seen before walking his dog, wearing my Seahawks sweatshirt, and Emma laughing in the kitchen. I had reinvented myself over the last vacation. Something had changed inside me. Not anger exactly, but something colder, more defined. I closed my laptop and pulled out my phone, making a list to call James, my Army buddy turned lawyer. Checking the VA loan terms, contacting the sergeant major about emergency leave consideration, home refinancing documents, something Emma had mentioned randomly last year, checking the security of my military pension accounts. I no longer felt sad or angry. I felt focused, as if I were planning a mission. This wasn't about emotion. This was about strategy now. At 5 a.m., before my shift started, I sent James an email with the subject line, "Urgent, confidential, legal help needed." He replied an hour later, "Call me on my secure line." Only when I hung up did I know exactly what to do. I didn't have to yell, threaten, or confront her. I just had to wait and watch, letting her actions become the trap. 2 months later, I was back on American soil. I didn't tell Emma I was going home, didn't call or text, just checked into a motel in downtown Spokane under a different name and contacted James. We met at a diner 10 miles out of town. "Emma looked bad," he said. "I felt the same," I replied. James handed me a stack of documents, house deeds, mortgage papers, bank statements, and a separate sheet that revealed something interesting when I was digging into her finances. It was a refinancing application with my signature, but not my real signature, with incorrect details and handwriting that didn't look like mine. Emma did this. I asked even though I knew the answer. James nodded. 3 months ago, she used the equity to take out $330,000. My signature was required because the VA loan was only in my name. Forged my signature to take out a mortgage on our house, then wiped out our accounts and divorced me. I told her she was a busy woman. It would be better. James said she listed her boyfriend as a co-applicant. He had 2 DUI records and a fraud charge from 2019. I took a deep breath. What were my options? James said, "But first you need to decide what you want." I thought about it. I wanted what was rightfully mine, and I wanted her to understand the consequences. James smiled, then said, "This is what we do." The next day I drove by our house. Her boyfriend's truck was gone, but Emma's car was still in the driveway. I parked down the street and watched. For a moment I thought about knocking on her door and confronting her, but that wasn't the plan. Instead, I drove to the bank and met with the loan officer who had handled the refinance, showing him my military ID and the forged paperwork. He paled and said I needed to report this immediately. I said I had filed a police report. That night I got a text from Emma. "Have you talked to anyone at the bank?" Her boyfriend Jeremy asked if I knew. I didn't answer. The next day, I went to the county clerk's office to file papers, opposing the refinance due to fraud, and to register a formal notice that no changes could be made to the property without me. 2 days later, Emma called to voicemail. "Michael, we need to talk. The bank called the house. What are you doing? If this is about a divorce, we can discuss it like adults." I still didn't answer. James called that afternoon. They had frozen the refinance amount. My wife's boyfriend was pulled over this morning for driving with a suspended license for drunk driving, and some interesting paperwork was seized from his truck, including prescriptions from the dental office where Emma worked. This was getting worse than I expected. I sat on the edge of the motel bed. This was getting worse than I expected. Part of me wanted to call Emma and warn her about her old habits, but then I remembered the security camera footage of the house, the dog, and the life I'd given away like it meant nothing. I couldn't get that number back now, and frankly, I didn't want to. I met with the bank fraud investigator the next morning, a short guy named Thompson with tired eyes and coffee stains on his tie. "This happens more often than you think," he said, spreading out documents on his desk. "Wives deploy others who see opportunities." "What's the situation?" I asked. "We've frozen the money from the fraudulent refinance. But there's a problem. Some of it's gone. About $14,600. I leaned forward, looking at him. "Where did the $14,600 go?" Thompson hesitated. "I'm not allowed to share that information. But this is your house." He nodded slowly and turned the computer screen toward me, showing the transfers out of the refinance account. I scanned the list several times. The transfers going to someone named Daniel Spencer, not Jeremy, Emma's boyfriend, but someone else I'd never heard of. I asked Thompson, "Who is Daniel Spencer?" He shrugged. "Not my department, but you should ask your attorney to subpoena these records." I called James right away. He said he'd run a check. James called back an hour later, understanding. Daniel Spencer was a real estate agent who specialized in quick cash deals. It seemed Emma was planning to sell our house. I said that the fact hit me like a physical blow. James said cautiously, "The deposits were probably a deposit to move on to another listing, but this is where things get interesting. Spencer has done business with Jeremy Ryan before." "Jeremy Ryan? Your wife's boyfriend?" "Yes, they've closed 3 deals together in the last 2 years." I sat down on a bench in the park trying to process this. This wasn't Emma simply leaving me for another man. This was a planned operation. Maybe she was the victim, or maybe she was involved in this. I rubbed my face. This wasn't just Emma cheating on me anymore. It was something bigger, more calculated, and many other military families were victims. "What do we do?" I asked. I contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. James said it was cross-state, involving military personnel and VA loans, and they were very interested. That night I sat in my motel room with a beer, thinking about it all, wondering if Emma had cheated on me throughout the marriage, or if she had gotten caught up in Jeremy's scheme, wondering if it really mattered. My phone rang again, a text from Emma. "Nathan, please call the bank. They're talking about fraud and Jeremy has been arrested." I stared at the text for a long time, then typed, "Who is Daniel Spencer?" Then paused, retyped, paused. Finally, I didn't know what to say. The next day, James called. The FBI wanted to see me. They had been investigating Ryan and Spencer for months. I wasn't the first, but I could be the opening case that helped crack the case. I felt almost satisfied, not because the marriage was over, but because the truth was finally out. I met with the FBI agents at the Spokane field office, Agents Patel and Donovan. They took my statement, copied all the material James and I had collected. We established a pattern of crime. "What about Emma?" I asked. The agents exchanged glances. "We're still determining the extent of her involvement." Donovan said carefully, "Did she ever mention any financial difficulties or pressure to sell?" I recalled Emma saying we were poor, that we should downsize. I didn't see the need. The mortgage payments were manageable on my salary. Patel notes that it all started about 6 months ago. That's when Emma must have met Jeremy. Donovan asked me not to discuss it with Emma or Jeremy. "We need to build our case carefully." I nod in understanding. I drive into the neighborhood that evening, parking near my house. Jeremy's truck is back, presumably having retrieved it from the lot. Emma's car is gone. The phone vibrates, a text from Emma. We need to talk in person. Meet me at Riverfront Park tomorrow. I show James the text and he advises against it. Nothing good will come of talking to her right now. I didn't go, but I wanted to know what Emma was doing today. While she thought I was seeing her, James and I drove to my house at 9:30, parking across the street at 9:45. Emma got out, got in the car, and drove toward Riverfront Park. James asked, "What do we do now?" I said, "We'll wait." 20 minutes later, a car with a real estate agent logo pulled up. Daniel, Spencer, and Jeremy got out to say hello, talked in the driveway, and then went inside. James asked if I wanted to come along. I shook my head. No need. I had installed security cameras last year, both inside and outside. I uploaded them to the cloud for James to see. James smiled. "You've never told me this before." I opened the security app, tilting the screen so James could see Spencer and Jeremy in our living room. Spencer took pictures. Jeremy pointed to features of the house. I turned up the volume and heard Spencer say, "I have an interested buyer. Cash as usual." Jeremy asked, "How much?" "420. We listed at 470. They offered 420. Everyone was happy. "What about the husband?" Emma said. "He's causing trouble." Spencer waved his hand dismissively. "Soldiers are all the same, making noise, but they're responsible for deployment. He'll get this sorted out." I turned to James. "You're getting this?" He recorded the feed on his phone. I gave Agent Patel access to the secure feed via text message. 30 minutes later, our house was surrounded by FBI vehicles. I watched from down the street as the agents led Spencer and Jeremy out in handcuffs. The phone rang. Agent Patel called. They had gathered enough evidence of the fraud scheme. "Your wife just arrived on the scene. She's devastated," he said. I looked down the street, Emma standing on the lawn, her hand over her mouth, watching the FBI agents carry boxes of documents from our house. "What's going to happen to her?" I asked. "Depends on what she knows and what you want," Patel replied. 13 years of marriage, the good old days before this all came to this. I just wanted the right thing to be done. In the end, the federal case moved quickly. Jeremy and Spencer pleaded guilty, indicting each other and several other accomplices in a tri-state operation targeting military families. Emma insisted she had no knowledge of the larger scheme, saying Jeremy convinced her I was hiding money, intending to leave her with nothing, saying the refinancing was his idea. She just went along with it. Maybe, maybe not. She agreed to settle, return all the stolen money, forfeit any claim to my house or military pension. Signed confession of forgery. I did not press charges. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that email from Kandahar. No fault, clean slate. The day the final papers were signed, I got a call from Agent Patel. Jeremy Ryan was sentenced to 8 years for conspiracy to commit fraud and identity theft. Spencer got 12 years. "You want to know more?" she asked. "Thank you," I said. "They've done this to 11 other military families. Your case helps us build a model for those families to get their money back." After I hung up, I sat on the porch of my rental apartment, watching the sunset, thinking about other families, soldiers who had deployed, thought their homes and marriages were safe, only to return to emptiness. I didn't plan on being the one to take Jeremy down in Spencer's operation. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes things just don't work out. The phone rang, a text from Emma. "I never wanted it to end like this." I didn't answer. What else was there to say? A year later, I sold the house, couldn't bear to live in it anymore. Too many memories, too much betrayal within those walls. I used the money to buy a small cabin outside Missoula, Montana, 2 bedrooms, 10 acres, a creek running out the back. No neighbors for miles, my new dog. I retired early after 20 years in the military. I gave enough, got a German Shepherd named Scout, started doing carpentry for the locals. It was simple work, but kept me busy and paid my military pension bills. Sometimes I think about Emma, wonder where she ended up. James heard she moved back to her hometown in Oregon, worked at another dental office, started over. I guess I don't hate her anymore. Honestly, I don't feel much for her anymore. I made my choice and so did she.